Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
I love my intro so much. It's very 90s Nickelodeon. Welcome back to Short and to the Point. Jessica Kleinschmidt here for the Comeback and Awful Announcing. How are y'all today? Hopefully well. If not, that's okay too. Yesterday was a tough day for me. So those days certainly happened, but I'm feeling good today. Things are good. It's a better day. I skipped last week because your girl lost her voice, which if you're one of my friends and family members, you would have loved it. I had zero voice. And when I did, it was quite raspy. People said it was sexy. It wasn't. They were just trying to be nice. But I'm back. I'm better than ever. I'm feeling a lot better. So everything is good. I went to the Offspring concert and Simple Plan and Sum 41 opened up for them. Your girl's going to scream a lot. That's what's going to happen. I'm a fangirl for pop punk rock of the early 2000s. What are you going to do? My guest today, I'm really excited about him because before your girl was here at the Comeback and Awful Announcing in the Oakland A's, I started my career with FanDuel. Yes, FanDuel, daily fantasy sports. And so when it came to my guest, Dubs Anderson, he's with FanDuel TV. He does everything from golf and, of course, horse race betting, all of the things. So when I got my start back in the day, this was, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even longer. If you would turn on the TV, there was a FanDuel ad. If you turn on the TV, there was a DraftKings ad. People were curious about what this daily fantasy sports thing was, and I loved it. I created content back in the day, and it was really fun, and I'm excited to introduce Dubs into this because for me, I want to know what it's like to have the balance of being entertaining, being knowledgeable, and still offering up all of that stuff while there is money attached to it. You have to remember, these people trust an individual with their advice, and that's attached to a monetary value. So that's a lot of responsibility that he puts on his shoulders, and he does it in a very entertaining and charming way. He's so charismatic and lovely, and I really enjoyed my chat with him. So without further ado, here is Dubs Anderson of FanDuel TV. Dubs, thanks for stopping by Short and to the Point. Thanks for joining us today. How's it going?
Good. Happy to be here, talking about sports and whatnot. Good way to break up the week. So, yeah, I'm jumping out of my skin. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just so glad that you're here. And I watch a lot of your content, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into and start off because you're entertaining, you're knowledgeable, and that's like a difficult balance to come about overall. And I try to strive myself on doing that, but you also have the monetary value involved when it comes to betting. How do you manage to find the balance of it all and still maintain like this upbeat, fun attitude?
I don't know. Look, it's a wonderful industry that I'm in. I love sports. I've always loved betting, the bookmaking side of things. And if you are playing with money, you're trying to win money, why not try and have a smile on your dial, right? It's a pretty loaded market, the old sports space as it stands here in 2023. So we're trying to make some good content. We're trying to help people stuff a couple extra dollars in their pocket at FanDuel TV. And I don't know, I guess always trying to look at it as being half full and not half empty. If you've got two choices, why wouldn't you try and stay positive? Because life, hey, it's a scary beast out there in 2023.
It is. It really, really is. And, you mentioned some of the content that you're creating, and it's really cool to see how versatile you are. And I'm not just talking about just creating and offering up the betting analysis, but you're fun, too. Like, I see you on, a horse, like, getting ready to go some of the horse race type. Yeah, like, and you're very, how did you kind of come, like, is that who you are as a person? Have you always been that way? Do you have to teach yourself to be that way?
I was going to say, with a couple of drinks in me, I'm very, very brave. But no, look, always up for a good time. I guess I was the same back in high school, which was back in Sydney, Australia. I won't age myself by giving you the year that I graduated. But yeah, always loved having a great time. Doesn't matter who I'm with, the company that I'm surrounding. And again, what we're doing at FanDuel TV on the wagering side of things is, it can be serious. Whether you're a serious bettor or whether you're trying to jump in and maybe turn $10 into 20, why not have a good time if you can do that while still learning, getting all that pertinent information, which, we're trying to share with the bettors. So look, every day, happy to chop it up, have a good time, and hopefully provide a couple of laughs for the viewers who come along with us, because life is too short. It's far too serious. I got no issues having a bit of fun at my own expense, but always trying to keep it serious when we're trying to back those winning tickets. I take that very seriously. But yes, you saw me up on the horse, Ketchup as he's known in studio. That was a great time. My technique, not that good. Athleticism, not that good. Maybe that's why I'm here talking about the wagering side of things and not competing out there on the diamonds around the golf course, if you know what I'm saying, Jess.
At least you can admit that. I feel like there's a lot of analysts and a lot of, former players or professionals who say I could go out and do that, which is fine. Sometimes they can, but that's not always the case. And of course, you're doing work over at FanDuel and FanDuel TV. It's really great stuff. Tell me about FanDuel though, because I've watched it over the years. It's gone up and down, and that has a lot to do with the fact that DFS maybe wasn't catching on at the beginning, and then betting, of course, took a storm over just sports overall. What have you noticed, like kind of the growth in that company?
Yeah, well, FanDuel's the biggest and the best in the business right now, and I think it's on par with what we've seen the last 3-5 years. I'm obviously from Australia, where betting, sports betting, playing the horses is a very big thing. Everyone knows how to bet. Everyone knows how to place a couple of tickets. But in the States, where sports betting is still not across the board, we're getting there, but it's still going to take a bit of time. Horse racing, obviously, you can play across the country. So that's what I've seen the trend, from fantasy players dabbling into sports betting. I mean, I've got these text strings, and I kid you not, I got the phone popping off about 25 times of the mates trying to organize draft night. When are we doing our fantasy night? Now, all these fantasy players over the last couple of years have discovered DFS, putting their lineups in for Thursday night football, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night football, playing at FanDuel, and now suddenly sports betting is getting bigger and bigger. So I think we're seeing a big push from the younger audience, the younger demographics coming in to have wagers. I think that's been fantastic. FanDuel, obviously, they've been a big player in the market for so long, and I really do think they're doing the best job with that right now in not only trying to look after the bettors that are returning, who know what they're doing, but some of the younger eyeballs who maybe are just trying to figure it all out. And that's what we're trying to do. Get everyone in, get everyone having a good time, and hopefully making a couple of bucks.
And you mentioned, Australian and horse betting, it's big there. How would you compare what that is to the States? Is it like just betting on football? Is it betting on soccer? How is that?
Yeah, I would say, back in Australia, horse racing is a top 5 sport. Aussie rules, you got the cricket, you got the rugby, and the horses is big. Every weekend, you're either at the track, you're at the pub, everyone's having a wager, the jockeys, the big horses, the big connections. And that's the potential. That's the upside here in the States, where the market is so much bigger. Obviously, there's a lot of different sports and whatnot to be wagering on, but the sport of kings and the product that we've got here in the US, I really think, I don't want to say it's better than what we see down in the Southern Hemisphere, but it's really strong. So for me, I'm excited to try and get some of the younger eyeballs, the younger demos into horse racing, because whether it's plus 300 for the next horse over at Delaware Park in 5 minutes, or if it's Shohei Ohtani, showtime for an anytime dinger, plus 300 is plus 300. So if you can make a bit of cash, why not have at it? And I tell you what, Jess, out of all the sports that I've wagered on, and you know what, we probably have a quicker time figuring out which ones I haven't wagered on. There's still no better feeling than having a ticket on a horse as they turn for home, the final furlong. I get excited just talking about it, cheering home your selection, trying to cash a ticket. It's just exhilarating. It's less than a couple of minutes, and I think that's the potential. That's the upside, because you look at some of these other sports. Love baseball. It's like cricket. It goes for 4 hours, right? You're sitting there, and the end score might be 4-3. Like, okay, that's fantastic. Soccer goes for 90 minutes, and it might be scoreless with no goals. The golf goes for 4 days. I've got to wait 5 days to cash a ticket on the PGA Tour. So the beauty of playing the horses, couple of minutes, same numbers. Why would you not?
So that actually kind of leads me to my next question. You mentioned you're trying to bring the more young demographic into horse racing. That's part of it. You only need a few minutes of attention span to get into it. But what are the other steps that you think you're taking, the betting world is taking, to introduce some of these younger demographics into the sport?
Yeah, I think it's all about education, and that works both ways for traditional sports bettors who maybe haven't played the horses a bunch. Maybe for DFS players who are getting ready for football season, who really haven't played a lot of the sports. They really don't know how to wager. They know how to build a lineup, and they're looking for good running backs and wide receivers, and you're looking for upside. But if you're trying to pick a spread, a money line, it's a little different. So I think key is education, trying to teach some of the bettors coming across of not only, the profiles, the horses, the names, how you should be looking at a race the same way you can look at a sporting game or fixture on Sunday afternoon, but the different ways you can wager. I think that's probably something that the new bettors come across. They go, oh, I hear exotic bet types. This just sounds a little too foreign for me. It's really not. If you can play 50 different prop markets on a baseball game this afternoon, you can also jump in and play a race in many different ways. We know what a win ticket is. All right, give me, $10 on the 5 at 5-1. You beauty, if we win, we cash. But maybe you're a bettor who likes a bit more insurance. You like playing it safe, and maybe you usually take the margin or you buy the extra points. You can look at a place bet. You can look at a show bet finish in the top 3. You cash. And I guess the big one for me is, and this will tell you a little bit about me, I'm happy to be wrong more times than I'm right, but it's the return on investment. When I hit, and hopefully we all hit together, I want it to be substantial. I'm always chasing chaos. I'm chasing a bit of a big price, and it's the multi-race wagers in the horse racing, which are very similar to the parlays that you see all over social media. I mean, we all love seeing a $5 ticket potentially cashing out $70,000 if you hit all 7 legs. In the horse racing, we got the pick 4s, pick 5s, where you're trying to pick four consecutive winners. Some of these prize pools, 300, 400, million and a half, where you can be spending $36 less and bringing back thousands in return. And once bettors start to see that, hey, I can jump in and play for a little bit. I can try and figure things out. I can fail, work on some different combinations, and some of the prices coming back in return. I think that is the beauty. And look, we all know social media. That's been a big driver of sports betting as well. I mean, instead of, bettors trying to go after a W money, it's let's try and get a little creative. And that's what, FanDuel does. The same game parlays. You can jump in and have all these different legs and whatnot. Chase the big numbers. I mean, that's why you buy lotto tickets, right? You want that big hit, life changer? That's what I'm searching for.
Love that. And, you say you chase the numbers, ROI, insurance, playing it safe. Like, all of these are kind of like big terms that stick out to me. I'm very much somebody who, I don't want to say the term terrified of betting, but I work hard for my money. I do want to see it, and I obviously have a great background in sports, so why not utilize my knowledge toward that? But if I were to introduce myself and say, hey, Dubs, I want to get into it, I want to start slow, how would you kind of give me some guidance to start off slow in the betting world?
Yeah, I would start within a race. The exotic bet types within a race. Let's just keep it simple. So we know what a win ticket is, but take a look at the exacta where it's first and second. So essentially a same game parlay within the one race where you're predicting 2 outcomes, because a win ticket, that pays nice, but you can imagine if you can call first and second, that's a nice little return. And to go one further, the trifecta, the first 3, and just to share a couple of numbers, last year at the Kentucky Derby, which is considered to be, the biggest race on the calendar, you could have played the dollar. So for $1, the superfecta, the first 4 finishes in that race, $321,000 coming back in your direction. If you just pick first, second, third, or fourth, it sounds easy in hindsight, right? I can't believe I didn't pick up $320,000, but that's how I'd be playing it. For new bettors looking to play the ponies, take a look within the race, exactas, trifectas, the try, obviously 3 tricycle, and the superfecta, the first 4. And that's the good thing about FanDuel. You can play them in the same spot. You can play the baseball. You can play the PGA Tour, the NFL. You can also play the racing, play the ponies. You don't have to go anywhere.
I love that. Something that you said really, really stood out to me. You said you're perfectly okay with being wrong. And that is not just from an analyst perspective. You have money attached to being wrong in certain of these aspects. So where did that mentality come from? Was it early on in your analyst career, and also like how do you embrace or just deal with a lot of the crappy comments you're going to get when people are attaching what Dub says to
play this or don't
Yeah.
play it. And then all of a sudden they come back like, man, like I bet my rent money on you, like WTF, bro. Like, how do you deal with that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, and this goes out to all the bettors. Doesn't matter what you're wagering on or how confident you are with the selection, how confident I am. Always stick to your bankroll. Stick to what you can afford to lose, and that's going to keep you in the game for longer. I don't care if a team's won 15 on the bounce and they should win the 16th, or a horse has got 6 and we're going for 7. There's no such thing as the L word in betting and playing the horses. I don't want to say it. Okay, I'll say it. There's no such thing as a lock. So always be smart with your money. Try and track how you're doing with your bets. And there's a lot of great resources out there on the old internet where you can do so. But I mean, for me, I started as just a young degen who loved to punt, loved to gamble at, back in Oz when I was younger than what I am now. And I figured out, look, if you're going to jump in and invest this kind of money, why would you not try and turn a profit and take it seriously? And I mean, for me, that meant not playing every single game, not playing every single race, but do your due diligence, figure out where you can find a bit of an edge over the market, over the field, and that's where you can really thrive. And that would be a standout for me, for new bettors who maybe want to start playing the football, playing the college football, the NFL. Stick to a team, stick to a conference. Try and figure that out first before you figure out the league. If you want to play the horses, don't just try and figure out every single track that we have going on the daily. Maybe clue in to a couple of jockeys you like, a couple of trainers that you like, maybe a track that's close to home or close to you where you can start to see a couple of trends, a bit of bias, and that's when you can really have a bit of a leg up over the field, over the competition. And the big difference between sports betting and playing the horses is on the sports side of things, you're going against the house, right? It's you against the book. On the horse racing side of things, it's pari-mutuel wagering, which stems from the French term playing amongst ourselves. So when you play the ponies, it's in your best interest to have that kind of edge, have that kind of lean over the rest of your fellow bettors. So maybe you can swoop in and get a bigger piece of the pie. But yeah, always stick to bankroll. And if you're going to jump in, whether it's during the week, maybe it's on Sundays, maybe it's on Saturday afternoons to play the football, you want to be trying to turn a profit because it ain't fun losing money. But, the beauty of social media, everyone can have their 2 cents. But I always try and encourage, if, you're going to put a hard time on someone's ticket or the way they structure things, tell them beforehand. If you got that secret sauce, we got to know before the game starts, before the race goes off. You can't just tell us about it after the fact. That doesn't count.
No, that's great. And that's interesting too. But you mentioned, there has to be a time, or there could be a time to remind yourself, I don't have to play every game. How do you get to that point? Is it the matchup? Is it the game itself? Sometimes it could be a mental situation. I don't want to say that we're playing the game ourselves, like we're not going out there and doing it. But you said sometimes it's okay to hold off on certain things.
Yeah, I mean, for me, every day we're over the fields, we're over the lines, we're over the different markets. And when you see an opportunity, as bettors, we're always looking at situational trends. What's going to change today? What's the standout? And if a number just doesn't make sense for a team, or if you think a horse is set at maybe 4-1 when it should probably be at 2-1, that's the green light. That's where you find the value, and that's the sweet spot for me. But if you don't see it, and if you're looking at a race, if you're looking at a tournament, you just can't figure out how it's really going to shape out. You look at the game breakdown, the pace scenario, and it just doesn't make sense. Don't jump in. Leave it. Move to the next one. Back in Australia, our big sports are played Friday night, Saturday, Sunday afternoon. That's it. I remember having to wait all week. I'm like, I cannot wait for Friday night football. But Monday through Friday, you got nothing to do. It's tough trying to find a wager. Here in the States, every single day, there's great opportunities that you can jump into. If you have to miss a race or two, a game or two, don't fret. There's one coming up in the next couple of minutes, and that's the best part about it.
Is there a situation, something I go through, I'm going to make this about myself for a second. I have to go watch a baseball game for fun.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's imperative sometimes, to just like taking a step back? Not everything has to have a dollar attached to it. Like, go watch a game for fun. Enjoy it just as a fan.
Yeah, it completely changes everything. And I think that's great to do. Sometimes you don't have to have a wager out there, or maybe, there's two teams that you like and you don't want to pick a side, you don't have to play it. But on the flip side of that, I tell you what, if you're trying to learn a new sport, maybe a niche market, and, look at NASCAR, even motorsport betting has really come on the last couple of years. And you're like, well, I just don't know the drivers or who's doing well, and you want to sit down and watch it for a couple of hours, you can jump in, have, a smaller stake again, stick to your bankroll, stick to your unit size, and that's a great way to get you to jump in, do a bit of homework, read up and learn some of these new sports, some of these new players. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a Sunday afternoon out at the ballpark and you want to have a couple of cold sodas and put the feet up, maybe don't have a play in it, because I know for me, as soon as I got to play in the game, and a lot of bettors are different. I've got a buddy who doesn't have to watch his bets play out. For me, I've got to watch. I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't care what's going on. And and if I'm at the ballpark, I've got the phone going, the app going, we're refreshing all the scoreboards. So it's a tough one. Everyone's different. Every bet is different. And there's so many different ways to approach it. But yeah, I mean, for me, it gets me all kinds of jacked up. So sometimes it's not a bad thing. Go out there, enjoy the game, and you can play the next one.
I'm being a hypocrite. I don't know how to be a baseball fan anymore. It's really difficult for me. I'm like, why am I in the stands? I need to be on the field right now. What's going on? That kind of deal. But the one thing that we wanted to talk about too is live betting. I feel like the moment a game starts, we're thinking, oh, it's over, but that's not the case.
No, it is not. And we've seen some big announcements. I mean, the PGA Tour and FanDuel last week, they've now opened up a bunch of live markets for the playoffs here. And, for the golf bettors, it's fantastic because, I mentioned you don't want to wait 4 days for a play. Golfers can now tee off and you can bet on nearest the pins, longest drives, who's going to birdie the next, hole number 16, which is fantastic because if you are watching a sport like that, it just makes it a little bit more exciting. And for you, Jess, being a big baseball fan, I mean, this is where you can jump in and make a couple of dollars. If you're not betting on first fives or whatnot, next batter ups, nerfies, yerfies, in the first inning, there's so many different opportunities. And I guess where the edge is when you know a sport in so much depth, right? Like if you know a team is coming off a long night last night and they've got their starting pitcher and if he gets waxed, they're dipping into the bullpen who doesn't have much. Well, sometimes the algorithms in the books aren't going to be ahead of that knowledge that you have or that trend. And that's where you can find a couple of prices. And if you're a big baseball fan and you know a certain player, their tendencies and habits, that's where you can sort of jump in because a lot of the times the books are going to be looking at the scoreboard and what's going on that side of things, trying to adjust from the money line prior to that game going off. So I think it's fantastic. And maybe you get to a game where you don't have a lean, but you're starting to see something. I mean, you look at soccer being Messi, just keep betting on Messi to score a goal. But if you're watching a game and you see a player start to tire, or maybe you see the other team putting 20 shots to 4 shots on target, it's the same as the hockey betting. You're like, well, it's still 0-0. The book's going to see that. But you're actually seeing what's in front of you. Opportunities are going to lead to potential goals, and you're always trying to get ahead of the trends, ahead of the market. And I think that's the best thing about live betting. Different ball game.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that too? You kind of become your own an analyst in your own right. So you're noticing something small that maybe somebody's not noticing. I do that a lot, obviously, with my broadcast. So to see something happening, and you have to kind of talk about it. In that case, you kind of get to be your own analyst and see what's going on, and you notice these trends. You can actually attach money to that. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I turn it back to, I started as a caddy. I was a professional caddy for a professional golfer, and that's sort of the insight which got me started in betting. I'm like, I can see a lot between the ropes, which the markets don't see, which a lot of bettors don't see, which can really help us, have an edge over the field once Thursday starts. And that's the kind of information that's imperative. And, being a big baseball fan, watching these games on the daily, you would see that. I mean, how often do we see in an NBA basketball game that a team goes down by 20 points, middle of the third quarter? There's always a regression to the means, right? Once they're 20 up, the good players, they're coming off. They're subbed out. But you're getting 19 in the hook on the spread. Well, that's probably the time to buy low, jump in, and a lot of those games end up getting a lot closer than you once thought. But I've worked with a lot of sharp minds across every sport on the betting side of things. And, even on the NBA side, just that ability to know when a head coach likes to make his adjustments and to know the rotations of who is likely to play who. Kevin Durant loves going off in that 7th minute, just getting right in before he goes off, getting ahead of that, getting ahead of the numbers, and that's where you can find a bit of value.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned that you were a caddy, because I know we're going to talk about golf now, because I'm finally getting into it. I'm really embracing it.
Yes.
And in that note, like in addition to the betting of it all, it's really picking up steam as far as just becoming a beloved sport. And obviously, I used to make the joke, and I take it back, but I would say, why are we getting so excited about a sport where there's a string holding back the crowd? And I take it back. I totally take it back.
How dare you?
I love it. And it's because I've played it. And, we talked earlier about, playing against yourself. And that's exactly what golf is. And when I cover guys in baseball and football and in basketball, they all get in their dome piece about their golf game that they had the day before, the round that they played. Tell me a little bit about what you've noticed, obviously, since your time being a caddy, and now that you're talking about it, how much the sport has evolved.
Yeah, I mean, on the betting side in particular, I feel the last couple of years, it has really gone to a new level. And I guess that's a sign of the times. Back when I was between the ropes on the bag, it was still a very stuffy, old school sport. It wasn't a lot of fun, and Tiger Woods has done a lot to shift that. And you can make of it what you will the last couple of years with a bit of rivalry, hostility out there on the golf course. I mean, I turn it back to when Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka, this was the biggest beef that we had in golf, when fans were yelling out, Brooksy, and they would get kicked out of the tournament. That was like 12 months ago. You can fill in the blanks of how the last 12 have been. But on the betting side is, it's essentially very similar to a horse race, but you've got 150 horses teeing off on Thursday. So you see the big prizes, 110 to 1s, 120 to 1s. And of course, with that many players, there's a lot of variance, but there's, again, so many different ways to jump in. But golf didn't used to be cool. When I was growing up, it was still a pretty, niche kind of sport. Now I feel like it's cool. It's cool to be a golfer. I think a lot of people got into it through the pandemic, socially a great way to get outside and play golf. And now they come back, they're watching golf. There's a lot of great young talent. It's not like 15 years ago, whereas Tiger Woods just beating up on Ernie Els
against everybody, yeah.
And Vijay Singh. We got young guys in the game now. Rory McIlroy's, John Rahm's, Scotty Scheffler's, Victor Hovland's, Colin Morikawa's. It's in a really good spot in competition, as we've seen, with the PGA Tour and the other tour. I think it's a good thing. It's put everyone on notice. There's a lot of money coming into the sport as well, and there's no days off. It's like baseball. What do we play? 163 games for the season, for the regular season. Well, the golf, they're nearly playing every single week. Every single week. The off season's coming up in 2 weeks for the PGA Tour. I think it's 2 weeks, and then we're back at it again. So that's the best part for me. Consistency. It's always there for us.
I saw your selfie with John Rahm. Who's your guy?
Who's my guy?
Who's your guy?
Who's my favorite player on the PGA Tour? Oh, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I could go anywhere with that one. I love John Rahm. He's a gentleman on the golf course, off the golf course. I'm always a little biased to my Aussies. I mean, Cameron Smith with the mullet, it's all business up top, party out the back. I was thinking of growing one of those myself, but I don't know. I like them all, Jess. It's hard for me to not like a golfer. I could probably rattle off a couple of names, but no, I better not. So I'd say Cameron Smith out of the Aussie contingent. I think he's probably one of the best in the world. And John Rahm, he's built like an absolute truck, like a rugby player. And his form out on the course this season has been unbelievable. And then Scotty Scheffler. How can you go against
Scotty Scheffler?
I love him. Just such a nice guy. He doesn't really care. And I think that's a common thing amongst all these great athletes. The ones who keep it simple up top and don't overthink it, they're the ones you want to bank on under high pressure situations. And Scotty Scheffler continues to deliver.
I wrote about his Masters dinner quite a bit. I love a Masters menu. I'm always.
What are you taking, Jess? What are you having? You've got to organize the Masters dinner next year at Augusta National. What's the menu? What's
Thank
your
you
go-to?
so much for this question. I so appreciate it. I would probably do a mixture of like snack bar, baseball, like ballpark food.
Oh, stop it.
But then like also I would do like steak, like a nice fillet.
Yeah.
I would definitely go chicken wings and a Caesar salad. And then I'd have like burger sliders, and then like I said, a fillet, some sushi, and make them like that's kind of what Scheffler did. He had like like the bar snack food and all of that.
Yeah.
But I definitely do a little bit of that. And then I went to Dustin Johnson, what he did for his Masters dinner. Like he did like a fillet. He did that.
Yeah.
I think Tiger Woods did sushi one year, so I'm adopting that from him.
Okay.
So thank you so much for that question, because I think somebody asked Rob Gronkowski that question. He said like chicken wings and pizza and stuff. So you can go wrong with that stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Gronk's an absolute legend. That's a tough one. Now you've made me hungry. So thanks for that.
Totally. And I saw you post a video of Scheffler. Was that you asking Scheffler that question when he moved?
Yeah. So when I was last out the FedEx Cup playoffs, Scotty had it took him a while to get into the winner's circle. He got it done at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and then suddenly the floodgates just opened. So I was in the press room, and I'm like, I've got to ask him what changes, when you wait so long to get that first win. And in horse racing, we call it the light bulb angle. Something just goes off, and Scotty shared some great insight. He's like, well, I was always a winner. In high school, I figured out ways to win. In college, I just figured out ways to win. And he brought it up through the ranks as a young professional. And again, and I think it comes back to just simplifying things out there in the high pressure situations where a lot of young guys, and this can be, applied across a multitude of sports, is they get in their own way. Another golfer that I think gets in his own way a little too much is Rory McIlroy. He's just thinking too much about golf swing and not about what's in front of him. And when you can see that he's just having a good time, not overthinking it, that's when you get the best version. So for Scotty Scheffler, he's figured it out. And, for the golf purists, if I asked them, what's so good about Scotty Scheffler? The golf swing's not good. I mean, he's doing the Elvis dance moves as he's teeing off there. It's not a textbook move. The short game is good. He keeps it in play, but he's not the longest driver. And he just keeps the big numbers off the scorecard. He knows that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Put yourself in the right position over the weekend when it matters. And if you keep showing up, you keep contending, eventually the wins will come in your favor. And once you do it once or twice, it's confidence that you've got over the next guy. And it works, flip side to that. A lot of young guys, a lot of young athletes, it can build up scar tissue. The more and more you put yourself there and you don't get it done, you start down yourself. It's in the back of your mind. So Scotty Scheffler, he figured it out quick enough, and it's been no slowing down since.
And I just like the interaction that you guys had, because he was so genuine and you were as well. And it was such a simple question, but a complex question at the same time, which I just nerded out from the journalistic perspective, because that's what I want to do. I want to simplify the question, but they want to simplify their game as well. And it's so interesting because the team that I cover with the A's are so many young guys, and I always hear, they want to slow the game down. And that just basically means simplifying everything. And it's such an easy thing to express and to talk about, but so difficult, especially with the sport like golf, where you're in your head so much.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I think about Matty Fitz too. Like, he's very analytical and he's very into the stats and, all the numbers that he keeps track of. I want to be inside his dome just to see like how he's able to slow the game down, because it's numbers, it's constant.
It's a lot.
To just go out there and then have a good day and good round on the greens, like, that blows my mind. And I just loved how you approached that question. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, fair credit to Scotty as well. A lot of athletes don't want to share a lot of insight or information, which I totally get as well, because, the press can go after him at times and they can't be the kindest. But Scotty Scheffler, he gives a lot, and I think that's why he's such, held in such high regard. And I mean, I got so much respect for him as a golfer and as a person as well. And he just reminded me, when I first got my start in caddying, it was for my friend. She was #1 amateur in the world. She was a class act, but she would turn to me, halfway through, say round 3 over the weekend in contention of a tournament and be like, what's my score? I'm like, what do you mean, what's your score? You're a professional golfer and you don't know what you've just had on a hole, or if you're 2 under, 3 under, 4 under par. But it was just that mindset of, I'm just playing the next shot that's in front of me. I'm not going to look at the scoreboard. I'm not trying to play numbers of where I need to be. I'm going to do the best. But the next opportunity that comes up, I'll make the most of it. Whatever happens, happens, and so be it. And I always found that, the better players, something about the high pressure situations, I think it can either make you or crumble you. But the better ones just have this ability to heighten the awareness and get the blinkers on. It's that laser focus where I've seen some really talented athletes on the golf course, playing other sports, where they get under the pump and they don't look like what we expect to see in that situation. It gets too busy up top and they just don't have it. So the best ones know how to harness that energy and just focus in on the finite details.
I've noticed that the good athletes, I hear them being described as even keeled. They maintain even, which I thought was like a cliche answer, but after a while you notice that's kind of what separates the good from the great. And I think so that pro that you were referring to, did you notice that when you introduced yourself or met more professional golfers, did they have that same mentality? I mean, obviously they're always keeping track to a certain extent, but were they just like the same thing? They don't constantly keep track of their score?
No. So I mean, the good ones I thought were similar in that regard, but you got a lot of overthinkers, and most of the overthinkers I know would be good enough to hold on to their tour cards, but probably weren't winning as much as they should have, because you're getting contention late on a Sunday. And if you're an overthinker, well, you're bringing more information into the equation. I think it just confuses and muddles the whole thing, where the simpler, the better. And I really do think that can separate the great ones. Not to say that, they're slow thinking or anything like that. They just know how to have that mindset, focus on what you need to focus on, and get the task at hand done. Just don't be twisted by it. Once you go out there, you're doing your thing. And I've got a good buddy, baseballer, Bobby Jenks, who closed out for the White Sox in a World Series. And I love getting his insight. I would ask him, like, what's it like going from the bullpen out there to the mound when they're playing that music? He's like, they start playing my music, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm like, you're not thinking about technique or anything like that? No. Just get out there, me against him, one-on-one. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like for me, I'd be like, keep the elbow in, don't go too far back, what's your left foot doing? And I guess that's the difference maker. Again, that's why I'm talking about wagering. I have no athleticism.
That's why we're not out there, we're sitting here.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah. All right, Doug, thanks so much for your time. This is a blast.
Hey, appreciate it. I love chopping it up. Love your work as well. Baseball, golf, horse racing, football. I think we've jumped into all of them, and you can wager on all of them. That's the exciting part. Yeah.
Just about. Make sure you're following Dubs on all of his social medias. He's a great follow.
That was Dubs Anderson of FanDuel TV. Thank you so much, Dubs, for stopping by short and to the point here on the Comeback and Awful Announcing. Make sure you go to our website. We have everything you could imagine, articles, more podcasts, all the good things. And make sure you're following and subscribing to our channel on YouTube at the Comeback TCB. Thank you so much to Philip, as always, for keeping this boat afloat, because let's be honest, without him, I would just be a hot ass mess. It is very hot in my apartment, and I'm looking forward to ending this so I can turn on the air conditioning. Don't forget to follow all of our work, and we'll see you next time.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.